Welcome guys to another episode on the Extra Mile. My name is Alex and I'm sitting here in a beautiful Ferrari 288 GTO, and since we have that car in Project Cars 2 and in Assetto Corsa, I thought it would be a neat idea to compare the two on the same track, in the same conditions, and just see how differently they feel, how differently they sound, what the lap time is, and so on. So let's start with Project Cars 2. Before we start, I want to check what kind of tires we are using here. Usually we have a make and model of the tire. Here we just have racetrack, summer tires, all-terrain, winter, and ice. So let's go for summer tires. I suppose those are regular sport tires. So here we are. Go, go, go! Alright, so first impressions of the interior. It's really well done. It looks really nice. Pop-up headlamps. I love pop-up headlamps, but we will leave them down in case they will influence the aero, which is actually something that we should test on another track. But anyway, let's go. Sounds really nice. So far it feels nice and weighty. I am using the Gigabyte force feedback files now, and if you don't know what that is, I will link it in the description. It's a different custom force feedback file that gives you a little bit more feedback, or so they say. Oh, it sounds good. Okay, let's brake a little bit here. Go to the apex, and the other one feels very good so far. Sounds very good so far. 220, 230, 240, and brake. Oh, wheel gets a bit funky when the wheels lock up under braking. I have to check if I can fix that. Turn-in feels very nice. You need a bit more steering lock than in modern sports cars, which are set up more direct, but rotates under braking, oversteers on throttle. So far no complaints. It feels really good actually. Oh, nice little rotation there during corner entry. So far it feels pretty damn good. Oh, nice rotation under braking. Very nice. It's very neutrally balanced, no understeer, too much oversteer. Feels very well balanced. Let's brake a bit for this one. Bit of a slide. And brake. There we go. Okay, so far impressions are pretty positive. Except for the wheel shake during braking. I have to fix that. That is new. That came with a new Gigabyte profile. 220, 230. Let's brake a bit, turn in. Yes, there we go. That felt nice. Oh, that felt really nice. 230. 30 to 40. Let's try 5th gear. A bit of rotation. Bit of oversteer on throttle. Very nice. I really like this. Turn in a bit later, late apex. There we go. Okay. So far it feels pretty much as I would expect it to feel. One apex, second and third. Very nice. I love the balance. It's a beautifully balanced machine. Very neutral. There we go. Alright, that was more, or still is a more or less clean lap. We will use that as a baseline. Oh, brake a bit. And brake. Easy on the throttle, and there we go. Alright, this is pretty damn sweet actually. Sounds very good. Let's try to drift it a bit. Feels very nice. You can slide it. Obviously this was never meant to be a drift car, but pushes over all fours a little bit. But that feels good. It feels good. It really does. .9 was the lap time, so now let's switch over to Assetto Corsa and see how we will do there. Oh, one thing that I want to say about the super sampling and the clarity of the picture is that I can read at least the large numbers on the speedo pretty clearly. Also, all the numbers on the ref counter, I can read them pretty clearly. So yeah, that's pretty good. In general, I can look into the distance and make out everything, so the super sampling I think will be an advantage over Assetto Corsa. But anyway, let's check it out, guys. Okay, now we're sitting here in Assetto Corsa. The car looks very similar. One thing that I'm noticing right away is that these air vents were black in the other one, and I'm not sure if this was Alcantara. This really looks like Alcantara. Here the instrument cluster and the dashboard cover, but apart from that, looks pretty much the same as it should. So here as well we will see what we can do. Street 90 street. I think the street compound is the best comparison, so let's use that. So all right, let's see. One thing I noticed is that the clutch is a bit easier to use in general. In Project Cars 2, it's easier to just normally start the car without it bugging down. Okay, the sound to me sounds a bit less aggressive. Steering feels, oh yes, that is that feeling at the limit. I think the gearing is different. But we reach pretty much the same top speed on the straight. We here need, oh yes, that was lovely. We do need a bit more steering input than you would anticipate from a Ferrari. Oh, brakes are not that great. It's exactly the same as it was in Project Cars 2. Oh, a slight rotation from the rear end. We had that in Project Cars 2. Whoa! Accelerated on the curb and lost traction. To be honest, guys, from my end right now, it does not feel that much different. There are more similarities than there are differences. That drifting over all four wheels that we had just now was in Project Cars 2 as well. Maybe it understeers a little bit more here in Assetto Corsa for some reason. Oh yes, it understeers a bit more, definitely. Oh yes, it does. I don't know if that's realistic or not. That's the problem. We would have to drive a real 288 GTO on Spa or at Spa, but I doubt that that will happen. Interesting. There we go. It is surprisingly similar to the one in Project Cars 2. Well, it shouldn't be a surprise. They should be similar, but it's kind of interesting that they are. Yeah, it feels pretty much the same. Okay, let's try to use this lap for reference, see how fast we can be. 2:41.9 was the time in Assetto Corsa. Brake as hard as we can. Hit the apex. And again. Okay, now tires have warmed up. It seems that the understeer is gone. Late apex, there we go, and accelerate. Ah, come on. Bit more understeer in general, I would say. Tiny little bit more, but that might be the tire compound. I don't know, hard to say. Come on, get to the apex. Slight problems getting the power down in second, just as we had in Project Cars 2. Come on! Definitely slower through this turn due to the understeer. Okay, we got this one. And there we go. Let's just warp to the pits and see what the lap time was. Just to remind you guys, 2:41.9 was the lap time in Project Cars 2. Both of these laps were not hot laps, they were just normally paced laps. Let's say it like that. Back to the pits. 2:49.7, which is quite a massive difference, and that is because of the understeer. This car understeers more. We had to take a lot of speed out of some of the corners in order to make them, especially that second to last, third to last corner where the fast left-hander. I think we did that in Project Cars 2 at around 200, maybe 195, and here we had to slow down to around 180, maybe a little bit less even. So that was noticeable. This car understeers more. I don't know if that is realistic or if Project Cars 2 is more realistic in that sense. That being said, they felt very, very similar. There were more things that both cars had in common in both simulations than there were differences, which is interesting. I would have expected them to feel differently somehow, that Assetto Corsa had more depth, but in this case of the 288 GTO, they were very, very similar. Another thing that I can say is that the 2.0 super sampling, which I can enable in Project Cars 2, allowed me to clearly read the dial, or at least the large numbers here, the 120, 160, 200, 240, and so on. It is more blurry here in Assetto Corsa, so in that regard, the resolution, let's say the perceived resolution in the headset is higher in Project Cars 2 than it is in Assetto Corsa, so it just looks a little bit better. But there's one thing that we can do here in Assetto Corsa that we can't do in Project Cars, which is get out and admire the car in its full glory, including the wheels and the bodywork at the back. And oh my god, look at that. I love those late 80s, 90s wheels that are a bit offset and have the bolts, and that's just good stuff. So, that was interesting, guys. More similarities than there were differences. This car felt a bit slower, not on the straights. They were pretty much identical in that regard, but it felt a bit... Oh, look at that detail, the curved window here. Another hidden air intake, so to speak. Awesome. But it definitely understeered more. That was noticeable. I would have to check some 288 GTO driving videos on the interwebs to see if that is realistic or not. Generally, I would assume that the 288 GTO from Ferrari is so well balanced that there is not that much understeer, especially in such a radical car. This is not just 328 or 308 or something. This is the full-blown 288 GTO, so I would assume that there is not much understeer in the setup, but that is neutrally balanced like it was in Project Cars 2. So maybe, dare I say it, maybe Project Cars 2 is even closer to the original, but that is just my personal guess. I can't verify that, but what I can say is that they felt very similar in the way they handled, only that the Assetto Corsa car had a bit more understeer, noticeably so. Anyway, guys, that was a quick comparison video, and I hope you enjoyed this one, and I see you on the next one. Bye bye.